I was desperately seeing the team to win.
The rights for BBC and ITV are up in the air.
During this time of year, non-rugby fans suddenly become rugby fans.
John refusing to move, I'm sure
your
listeners can remember that game.
Yeah. Steve Borthwick makes bold calls.
I want people going to work on a Monday morning being 6 inches taller because they're proud of what their England team did.
Oh, I love the Six Nations, and I'll sit down and watch it because it's on free-to-air TV.
Occasions like that were just fantastic, aren't they?
Go.compare sponsors the Telegraph Rugby podcast. Every rugby player knows they need the support of their team to get the best results, and it's the same with insurance. When you are looking for great deals on your insurance, you can find the perfect support in Go.compare, helping compare the right deals for you. Feel the deal with Go.compare.
Hello everybody, lovely to be back with you ahead of the Six Nations Championship. We know it's been a little while since the autumn, but I hope you haven't missed us too much. I'm Ben Coles, Telegraph's rugby reporter. I'm joined by Charlie Morgan. Hi Charlie.
Love to see you, Colsey.
And I'm joined by Charles Richardson. Hello Charles.
Hello.
I haven't introduced you there. Sorry, Charlie Morgan, senior rugby writer. Charles Richardson, rugby reporter. You two have been very busy the last few weeks while I have been just on holiday, to be honest. So you've been getting ready for the Six Nations. Tell me what's going on, Charlie. What are we excited about?
Well, I was on holiday before that, so I'll come back into a cold January and try to graft, and it's just always hectic, isn't it, Charles? It's wider squad selections, and then we narrow down into team selections. All the injury news gets thrown up in and around that, and when you're trying to make your predictions at the most awkward time. But we love it. Lifts the January gloom, and it's very exciting.
Charles, I'm glad someone's been working. What have you been busy with over the last few weeks?
Trying to figure out what we're going to be doing over the next 6 weeks, really. It's just all about Six Nations, isn't it, January? I mean, there was Europe, but obviously with the current European format, the pool stages are less enticing, I would say. It gets sort of a bit spicier at last 16. There was a good round of the Premiership, but again, it was without England internationals because it's all just full steam ahead for the Six Nations.
But hang on, I was hoping you were going to tease your trip to Gloucester there and a certain project that you've got coming up.
Oh,
or
yeah.
Are you not willing to speak about that yet?
Yeah, we do have a certain project coming up. Yeah, watch this space. I was at Kingsholm on Saturday with
in the shed
with Hollywood A-listers.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
I'm having that.
And that will be a piece that comes out before the end of Six Nations.
What a tease. Fantastic. Before that, the Six Nations is nearly upon us. The timing of this recording has actually worked out well because we've just had England announce their team to face Ireland in Dublin on Saturday. Very interesting selection, which we'll get into. But Charlie, just the quick headlines from that before we dive into it. Tell us about what you reported earlier today and what else we know about the side.
What I reported was that their back row was going to be two Currys and Bennell. And yeah, they've gone with that super mobile three. There's also a start for and a test debut for Caden Murley on the left wing, which has come out of the blue a little bit. He's been in very good form, especially coming back from an injury at the start of the season. Looks especially quick, but it's bold. Steve Borthwick makes bold calls. He doesn't always get acknowledged or appreciated, but he does it maybe more than we give him credit for.
Oh, we'll certainly dive into it, how interesting a team selection it is later. Charles, if I swing it to you, the favourites for this tournament are France. Why is that, do you think?
Well, because they're always dangerous, aren't they? And with Dupont and Untamak coming back after last year, I mean, they were second last year without their halfback pairing. They do have to go to Dublin this year, which could be tricky. I mean, we're going to be doing our predictions this week, and as a bit of a spoiler, I've backed them to finish top, but I don't necessarily think they'll get a Grand Slam. I don't think they'll go to Dublin and win. But I think they will win at Twickenham because I think even with the injuries that they've got in their pack, it still looks formidable and very well balanced. Their back three is sensational. They've got a couple of injuries in midfield, but again, Pierre-Louis Barassi has looked really good for Toulouse this year. Still question marks about Mo Fana in all honesty at 12, but he's not the worst option of all time. And I think they play pretty awesome rugby, and Dupont coming back is just a massive boost for them, a massive fillip.
Am I right in saying we haven't had Dupont and Intimat together for France for quite some time?
Yeah,
we're talking like pre-World Cup.
So World Cup warm-up against Scotland when
which should terrify everyone slightly, given how well they go.
Yeah, I'm surprised they're bookies' favourite. Bookies don't get much wrong, do they? But
and the clubs are going so well.
The clubs are going so well. I was speaking to somebody who tracks these things, and he said that the France's odds had been slashed as a result of Toulouse and Bordeaux causing absolute mayhem in the Champions Cup. But just quite quietly, Ireland had been favourites obviously until then. And I am backing Ireland.
Yeah, my simplistic view of these things just looks at the fixture list and the best two teams and who is at home and sort of goes from there, which is why I'm slightly surprised by that. But I guess Ireland have that uncertainty, don't they, with Andy Farrell not being there. He's off on Lions duties. Simon Easterby's taking over there. Maybe that has played into it. Maybe that's an ingredient. I don't know.
And also in the autumn, they were decent, Ireland, and they were decent because they've just got very good players, but they weren't as fluid and as connected and as sort of threatening as they have been previously. I know they've still got this question mark at fly half, but yeah, there are question marks, but they look. I would say that they're as likely to win the tournament as France for my money, but they look maybe more fallible than they once did.
We do have an interview in this week's episode from back a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it, Charles? When England named their squad, when Charlie was actually on his Sun Lounger. Now I think about it, Charles, you and I went down to Twickenham and had a long chat with Steve Borthwick. How would you sort of describe that kind of conversation, which kept going longer than we expected? I can't remember how long we were allocated, but we certainly went over that. What did you make of that chat we had with him?
Yeah, he was on really good form, wasn't he? I think, and the longer it went on, the more sort of revealing and relaxed he became, the more sort of engaging and fascinating the things he was saying was. He spoke about at length about his how he idolised Martin Johnson growing up and how he remembers that 2003 Grand Slam game in Dublin and with Mary McAleese and the red carpet thing where Johnson refused to move, and he just spoke about how he wants his team to run and fierce competitors, and we'll come on to the team in a minute, but I think that's probably why the Curry twins are there, because you can't say that they've not got good engines. But yeah, he just said that he wants his team to run and to bring everything that they do in the Premiership onto Test level, and hopefully we see that on Saturday night.
Also, a story about a buggy and the tube, which is all I will tease for people to make sure they listen all the way to the end of the interview to just hear what that's about. But without further ado, let's get into that interview now. Here's Charles and myself having a chat with Steve Borthwick.
Hello, Steve.
Hello.
And thank you again for joining us. So to begin with then, can we just ask about life since the autumn? Obviously, 1 victory, 3 disappointing losses, no doubt, but what did you do during December and January to sort of move on, get over that disappointment, and then look ahead to what's coming over the next couple of months in the Six Nations?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me on the podcast. I think at the end of each series, there's the debrief and the review. Now, there's usually different parts to that. And the parts are the coaching team debriefing together and going through and with a fine tooth comb going, what do we need to do better? Where do we need to go? There's another part that is looking at the trends in World Rugby, and you're always trying to look ahead. Because that's the nature of Test Rugby. You have these really intense blocks. Then there's a period where where's the game going to be at the start of the next block? What do you need to, because if you're just working what's just been, you're probably not where it's going to be. And then there is the review with the wider management team, which is about our programme. How do we improve our programme so we prepare the players and the team as well as we possibly can for the next series? And within that, the players always have input. And we get reviews through various different ways from the players. And then my role, one aspect of my role is obviously to put all of that together and go clearly, right, this is the direction we're going in, this is what we're going to do next. And at one point, there's always lots of things. And then what's really important at Test Rugby is your prioritisation. Do effectively more of less. What are the big things, and you're going to spend more time on those. That's always so that's the initially after any series. That's the process you go through for a number of weeks of going through that, and then at the same point you're watching the games and watching which players are going to start to emerge, because before you know it, and the gap between autumn and Six Nations is a short one, and you're back in before you know it.
So you spoke about trends there, and also earlier you spoke about, on the day of your team announcement, you spoke about attack. What are the attacking trends that you are seeing for the Six Nations, and how are England going to develop from a team that attacked phenomenally at the back end of last Six Nations to maybe a little bit more stuttery during the autumn, and where now is this team going ball in hand for this Six Nations with what you've seen globally?
Yeah, and I'd counter what you said about the autumn, and if you look at the way the team attacked, some of the tries that scored, this year at Allianz Stadium, I thought the manner in which the fans got behind the team, and some of those tries that Chandler's try on the right hand side, the first try versus Australia, was outstanding. The number of pairs of hands that went through. Tom Curry having multiple involvements in that same play. I think there was 7 passes and 6 of them were by forwards. And you used to go, when was the last time you saw an England team handle a ball like that? And the support play when Marcus Broke versus New Zealand, and George Furbank and Manny Feo-Bosa, unfortunately 2 players not available in this Six Nations, got on his shoulder to finish that off so very, very well. And the pace that Ollie Sightholm brings, and the way he finishes tries when that little kick down the edge he has got, I think some of that play I thought was very, very good. And I think you see, and that's against some of the best teams in the world. And we were tested for a big period last year. We played New Zealand 3 times in a row, which is brilliant for us to know exactly where we are at. So for us, and in the autumn, you saw a trend for the nature of the game became more unstructured. I think the law change around the kicking game meant that there's more unstructured ball, more bouncing ball, and typically what you used to when that high ball catch with an escort or protection, whatever people call it, that then almost became like a structured set piece, because that guy's going to catch that ball because he's protected by 5 players, and then you treat that almost as a structured possession. Now the catch percentage is much lower, which is mean the ball is bouncing, which is mean it's more unstructured, which then puts skill set under pressure, and it also puts the greater opportunity for the attack. So I anticipate more of that. And the final thing I'll say about the Six Nations in particular is the nature of it, and is the contact area is highly competitive. And we've always seen it in the trend in every one of the Six Nations is the jump in the competition of that contact area. Now, I think there's so much good going on in the Premiership right now. You see the attendance are up, the TV audiences are up. Some of the attacking side is wonderful. The ball movement is excellent. What the nature, one of the areas that's different from the domestic competition to international rugby is the competition at the breakdown and the contact area. So we've got to make sure we're prepped for that.
And so what will you be saying to your side ahead of Ireland away in Dublin, France at home? England will certainly have had easier starts to the Six Nations than those 2 games. Mentally, with your experiences of 2019, going there as an assistant and winning in the opening weekend, and then being very wary of the fact that Ireland will be out for revenge after you deservedly defeated them here at Twickenham last year.
Well, I think the first thing to say is what an exciting start this is. Going against, you've got to hit the ground running. And I'm well aware of England's history in the start of different championships and different series of games. I'm really well aware of it. So we've got to make sure that we are right to go, really specific in our preparation. And I talked earlier on about Test rugby and how you've got to do effectively more of less. What are you actually going to focus on? So preparation, real specific against one of the very best teams in the world. We're going against a team in Ireland who are clearly really have incredible cohesion generated through their consistency of their programme, consistency of their selection, and the nature of their programme in Ireland and the number of players that come from Leinster. That certainly had helped in what they've built over a long, long time. They've clearly, as we look at this now, who starts at fly half? would be such a pivotal position, fly half. And through the Autumn Nation series, they changed over these 3 different fly halves, and then at different points in games, and changed that fly half when things weren't quite going the way they wanted to. That's not a situation that Ireland have been in, for the obvious reason of Johnny Sexton for so long. So from a preparation perspective, we've got to look at a couple of different eventualities there. But what I keep coming back to is our squad comes together from 8, effectively we're now represented from 8 different clubs, and whilst that's an advantage in England is the league we have, it's also a challenge. 8 different systems, 8 different calling structures, 8 different patterns, 8 different cultures, 8 different, and that could go to 9, it could go to 10 depending on when I select the squad who I select from. So what we need to do is focus on us, because 8 different teams need to come, 8 different clubs need to come to one England team very, very fast. And so I will be focused on Ireland, I will look at them tactically, but we need to produce 8 clubs need to go to one England team super fast.
And you mentioned the fly half battle there. You've got your own sort of embarrassment of riches at 10, really, with 3 players who have got enhanced EPS deals. A betting man would say that one of those 3 will be missing out on a match day 23 every week. How do you, if they're all fit, how do you manage that? How do you manage a trio of players like that who all obviously want to play and who have all deserve to be there?
Yeah, and I think that's the nature of any top class rugby player, top class sportsman knows you want to be in an environment where there's competition for places, because if you've got really good quality players competing for the positions, it's a sign that this is a good squad, and I think you see it there. And whilst we've taken some knocks and bangs, and we've got a few players unavailable for selection, Sam Underhill, Manny Fairobosa, George Furbank, to name just 3 players, there is a lot of competition for places. Now, the nature of test match rugby players is they thrive on that competition.
With your defensive system, how would you sort of sum up what you're trying to build there? Does it fit into a stereotype of a blitz defence or a drift defence, or is it a hybrid of both? How would you describe that?
And I understand that blitz is not a term we use, but I'll use it because I think it's the term that's widely talked about. So the blitz is one, it's characterised by line speed pressure upon the opposition, yes. And what I want to do is, and through 2024, we developed that system. And now what we want to do, and I think it's right for our team, within the physical makeup of our team, is to continue to have line speed and put the opposition under pressure through us getting off the line. I also think as the game changes and as your team changes, you've got to adapt. And I think that there's different ways of doing it. You have systems in place, and players have got to adapt to the systems regardless. Or you have players come in, they've got certain strengths and certain points of difference, and you adapt your systems to maximise their talent. And that's what in the process of doing. As this squad is changing, so do the systems with which we play. Defence is one of them. I think this team at its best can run, and I want to ask the players, make sure you're ready to run, because against Ireland you're going to have to run. And having a defence system that you make sure that you've got that ability to put the players running for each other. And again, I come back to what I said earlier. What have you got when you're building a new team? Because we're 1 year into a new team. That's effectively, we put a team in year 1. It was get a team for the World Cup, or in the first 8, 9, 10 months. Mm-hmm. Now this is we've just come to the end of year 1 of this team. I go back. You've got to get from 8 different clubs, 9 different clubs, 10 different clubs into one England team, where you get used to playing for each other, get used to running hard for each other, working for each other. And you don't know these guys like you do your club mates who you come through the academy with. And that's one of the challenges you're at. So that's why I need these players. Consistency in the selection, consistency in the way we approach, and ensuring the standards we have, run hard for each other.
I know your time is precious, so just to close, you've spoken a lot about your pride of coaching England and your memories growing up as an England fan and watching the Five Nations and then obviously moving into a professional career. But I don't think you've sort of ever said about your sort of idols or inspirations inside rugby or even outside of rugby growing up and what got you to where you are now. Or your favourite matches or any standout memories from your time as an England fan.
Yeah. So as we sit here at Allianz Stadium, I played here for the first time as a 15 or 16 year old for England schoolboys and played against Wales here. And the team will be playing. Then the next year I played here for England under 18 schoolboys against France. So players in those couple of games I played there, players like that I played with have been people like Andrew Sheridan, David Flatman, the Ian Balshaw, Mike Tyndall. These are players that have played through that period with, and so coming here and playing in an England shirt, no matter what age, I want to do this again. I keep wanting to do this. I want to represent England at every level, all the way through. And I sensed even the first game I ever got to watch, because I live in the north, and coming down to London to watch the game happened too much, but I want a game at Old Trafford. England played at Old Trafford. I think it was in '97. And I just remember thinking how incredible this is, watching this England rugby team. So my earliest memories are actually from a real tangible touch in England would be those experiences. But I'm still the guy, the little boy who's watching it, on the TV, watching the Five Nations on the TV, cheering on England in that manner and thinking it's a million miles away, but maybe one day I can get somewhere near. Those are the dreams. Those are the things I remember. Now, in terms of games you asked me about, and games that I remember, or the players as well as remember. If you talk about players, once I started as a schoolboy getting that touch of putting the England schoolboy shirt on, and I wanted to play for England. So I was there watching Mike Johnson's games, and the old you too young for the VHS cassettes, rewind them, pause, go back. I'd have England games on the VHS cassette and watching Jono backwards, going back, forward, going again. What did he do? How did he do that? Studying him. That was it, because I wanted to play for England. That was, and then seeing firsthand those guys, seeing the way Jono led the team, seeing famous games like the England-Ireland game where the teams go out in 2003, the Grand Slam game, and line up, and Jono refusing to move. I'm sure your listeners can remember that game. Yeah, Jono, he'd been told to stand down, and the Ireland team wanted to move, and he didn't move the team. So this is where we're staying. And I thought, occasions like that, they're just fantastic, aren't they?
I know Serene McGeechan spoke about picking Martin Johnson as a captain because of his imposing stature. Did that come into the sort of thought process a little bit with Maro Itoje, given that you are going into quite an intimidating place first up in the Six Nations on Friday night in Dublin? Has that ever come into the part of the sort of thought process?
To be honest, no. And very clear is what you want in test players, what you want in your lead is fierce competitors. And I go back to what I said about from coming from 8, 9, 10 clubs into one team, a team of fierce competitors. I'm the England head coach. I'm also an England rugby supporter, and I think as we're England supporters standing, touchline in the stands, at the TV, in the pub, the big screen, wherever it might be, is you want to see fierce competitors. You want to see England players running hard for each other. You want to see England players tackling with each other. You want to see England players moving that ball fast at speed, and that's what I want as coach. And the job when these players come in, to an England environment, is understanding that's what the expectations are. This is a team where we want those people being proud of their England team. We want them when they go to work on a Monday morning, they're feeling 6 inches taller because they watched the England rugby team at the weekend and saw the fiercest competitors, and they're proud of that England rugby team. They're proud of the men that are pulling on that England rugby shirt. That's so, and I think we've got a group that are really endeavouring to do that.
And then just finally, obviously, last year is in the past and is finished, but it was an England team last year who lost more games than it won. What would your message be to the fans ahead of the Six Nations who might be feeling a little bit disappointed or a little bit pessimistic ahead of Six Nations, where arguably the two most difficult tests come first?
I was in London just a couple of weeks ago, and I was just getting on the tube, and there's a family getting on the tube with a baby in a buggy getting put from the platform onto the tube, and the guy lifting the buggy saw me there and getting on, and saw me, turned and went to shake my hand. And this point the buggy's halfway on the boat, which maybe
a dangerous situation. Yeah.
And he, I wish I'd got his name because I could say it now. And he said to me, Steve, thanks to your team, making us proud to be English. And when I quick chat with him, and I know I got stopped another number of times where people talking to me about the way this team is going about its rugby. Now, we know this is a team that's renewed, had a whole host of effectively like renewals. The team's changed. But what I see now is a bunch of young men that are desperate to do well, that play with pace, play with skill, play with endeavour, and they want to put their skill set on the park. So when I see Tommy Freeman passing the ball around his back, very, very deliberately, very calculated, pulled the defender out wide and then put it behind his back to hit George Furbank in that final test, having come off the back of some results beforehand that weren't, whilst there was aspects of the performance were very good, it's telling me these players are going to bring their skill sets in an England shirt. Because lots of England teams haven't previously. I played for an era of the England team where the team changed left, right and centre. Tactically, we changed left, right and centre. Personnel changed left, right and centre. And people were more interested in keeping their place in the team than actually just going and bringing a point of difference to win for England. Now, me, I'm just desperate for this England team to win. I go back. I want people going to work on a Monday morning feeling 6 inches taller because they're proud of what their England team did. And we start against Ireland in Dublin. What a brilliant challenge. And I sense these players, you've got a choice. You can either be daunted by the challenge or you go and embrace it. And I sense these players are really embracing this challenge. We know Ireland are great. Ireland are, they're going to be big favourites to win the game. Huge favourites. Well, there were huge favourites last year as well. And that's the nature of it. We will make sure we go and put in a really good performance that we're proud of, performance our supporters are proud of, and I think if we do that, we'll put ourselves in a position to win the game.
Steve, thank you very much.
Thanks, Steve.
Best of luck for the Six Nations.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Right, that was plenty of time with Steve Borthwick from the other week, which I really enjoyed that, Charles, just to kind of get a chance to hear him explain some of his thoughts that we often hear in press conferences and sort of those huddles that we do, but just with a bit more kind of context and a bit more detail. What sort of leapt out to you from that?
Well, how about with him also springing an early team selection today, which is sort of about as close as Steve Borthwick gets into the realms of mind games, that he said he built up Ireland for Saturday night. He said that they're going to be huge favourites, and then there was sort of a cheeky, but they were last year as well, weren't they? When obviously England stung them at Twickenham.
That to me gives you a little glimpse of him behind the scenes, because he's not leading those team meetings in weeks. Is he being apologetic or being down on England's chances? We always hear, don't we, that behind the scenes Steve Borthwick is punchy, precise, and actually, there's in when he's actually in a private setting speaking to a team, and that to me gave a little flavour of that.
I haven't thought about this before until you said that. Is this actually a great first game for him because he's got months to just plan it and plan the detail of it, and we know how kind of
I've always
focused on that. Years.
Yeah, I've always thought that one thing he's clearly whether he sort of tries to distance himself from Eddie Jones, doesn't he? But he's always been a disciple of Eddie Jones. And one thing Eddie Jones was fantastic at was zeroing in on a game with a big preparation time and producing a performance that was really tailored to a tactical plan. One of the most famous times he did that was 2019 against Ireland, which is the last time they obviously won in Dublin. So yes, I imagine Steve Borthwick we know he's been thinking about the 6-2 for a long time. The back row he played against Japan in the last autumn games had Tom Curry at 6, had Sam Underhill rather than Ben Curry, but he's trying to sort of connect those dots now. Looking back, I certainly think he's had his eye on this one for a while.
One of the traits of this England side sort of post the 23 World Cup, it has been what their defence is, and sort of it was a blitz defence, but they've always sort of steered away from that. So I quite enjoyed pinning him down on that, Charlie, and just trying to get an explanation of what he's looking for in terms of a system, and getting him to explain, I guess, why it isn't strictly a blitz defence and the philosophy there.
Tell me, were you convinced by that explanation?
Not entirely, because I guess I didn't quite get the reticence in not just calling it a blitz defence if it is one. But then I feel like we've had to mine to get a lot of detail out of England with a lot of things. Like the attack was a great example. I mean, how much have we written about the attacking transformation from that York week last year and what they're trying to achieve there? And actually, Charles, he spoke with a lot of pride, didn't he, about what they've been able to do in attack. And he feels that there's been, in the autumn, huge progress in that area, even if the results haven't necessarily been there.
Yeah, when I suggested that England's attack had maybe slightly regressed in the autumn, off the back of the end of the Six Nations last year, which I do still maintain. I don't think that the attack was poor in the autumn. They scored plenty of tries, and it wasn't that cost them matches, but it wasn't as connected and as fluid and as incisive as it was during the Ireland victory at last year's Six Nations and the narrow loss to France in the final game. He said, "Oh no, I'd actually counter that," and I think that our attack was excellent during the autumn. And he mentioned Chandler Cunningham South's try. And when was the last time you saw England forwards handle the ball like that? Is what he said, and which is a fair point, and which I will accept that was a
PlayStation rugby.
Yeah,
try,
and that was an excellent try. And you don't often see that. Has not been a hallmark of English packs and of English forwards to handle the ball like that. And actually, against Ireland in last year's Six Nations at Twickenham, there was the Furbank try that involved Underhill and Nitoje, didn't it? And some lovely ball play from them. So yeah, but he also mentioned how important it is to get the attack firing now, because it's too difficult when you get closer to a World Cup to get it fit and firing, and how important it is. He mentioned the South Africa semi-final, and clearly that's something that is still on his mind, about how they came so close, but they had 2 opportunities to score tries and they didn't take either of them, and they lost by a point.
Given we're talking attack, because I want to chat tens in a bit, Charlie, but just in terms of the attack linked to the selection for Dublin, and with Murley, with the Currys, with Earl in that back row, there's a clear sort of directive there, isn't there? They want to have pace, and they want to try and play at speed. What do you sort of make of what those selections mean?
Exactly that. I think we've known for a while, with the promotion of people like Manny Faye-Waboso, Ollie Slightholme, that they wanted to get pace into the side, and that's not necessarily what you're doing in the back three. That's clearly also the back row, where he's picked 3 serious athletes in the back row. It may be where England might be concerned is clearly the line out. I think that'd be clever with sort of inset lifting and things like that. And in the close quarters, Tom Willis, they have got Tom Willis, they've got a bench with Chandler Cunningham South and Tom Willis on it, who are they're probably 2 keynote carriers for tight spaces, but the starting side isn't necessarily as good there. There'll be a fair bit of onus on Ellis Genja, would have thought. What really interests me, which is a point I'm going to have to steal from @TitchRugby on X, he mentioned the relationship between Marcus Smith and Caden Murley, not necessarily just as a 10 and an 11, so looking for those kick passes, but maybe later in the game when Marcus Smith potentially moves to 15, you have a lot of kind of cohesion in that finishing back three, which is really interesting.
Yeah, massive counter-attacking threat there as well, as we've seen them do so often for Queens. They had to go 6-2 for this, didn't they, Charles? It always felt like this was was this one where having those extra forwards would count, and having Chesham Cunningham himself, Willis sort of on the bench with instructions to come on and empty the tank. That feels like quite positive, actually. I feel more encouraged about England's selection there than I have for a while.
Yeah, the forward replacements look strong, don't they? They look dynamic and explosive, and yeah, I think he was always going to go 6-2. He likes 6-2 anyway, and with Marcus able to switch to 15, you've got a sort of it gives you more breathing space, because it's always risky. 6-2, it's always risky.
Just on Ireland, no Tyke Furlong for this, which is always a shame. For Sam Prendergast at fly half, Charlie, it sort of ended the autumn with the shirt. It has still gone well for Leinster in the time since then, but this feels like his kind of big run, like 5 Six Nations games, chance to really cement that position. What do you make of that little dynamic between him and Jack Crowley? It feels. I was trying to compare it just then to Marcus Smith and Finn Smith, and whether it's more. It feels maybe more as clear cut as that, if that makes sense. I feel like we were kind of settled on Marcus as the starter and Prendergast is for Ireland.
Yeah, I think this one feels more fluid and divisive and contentious, doesn't it? The poise about Prendergast is really impressive. He's more of an athlete maybe than people give him credit for, but the way that he it is a very Marcus stroke Finn Smith kind of conversation. Crowley is this guy that we know he's just got so much about him. He was excellent against Saints, wasn't he? But then again, so was Prendergast in those Champions Cup games. I thought Bath got to him a little bit and rushed him a fair bit, which was really interesting. That'll be a template that England use if Easterby goes with Prendergast. But you're right. I think that does seem totally up in the air, and it's a huge call to make for a guy who's kind of the interim head coach in Simon Easterby.
Well, we came out of the first game of last year's Six Nations, didn't we, on that Friday night in Marseille when Crowley was at 10, and we were like, oh, well, they're going to be fine because the Sexton successor is there and ready, and already that kind of narrative is just flipped, hasn't it? I mean, I think though you have got 2 really interesting options there, and I suppose that's going to be the balance. Prendergast is still 21, isn't he? Still kind of, but surrounded by so much valuable experience, and with Gibson Park and everybody around him there. Otherwise, a really strong side, I think, in terms of, and strong squad. Not too many concerns.
No. We're going to see some new faces. Thomas Clarkson's coming in. He'll have to be in the squad as a backup tight head behind Finney Bealham, you'd imagine. They're super strong in the back 5. It always seems to be. Lot of emphasis probably though on Andrew Porter playing a lot of minutes. I'm really interested in this because the phase attack, because that's obviously their super strength and it has been for a while. Andy Farrell is known as the guy who oversees that, and the guy who encourages the freedom, encourages the wing, like calls it a messy attack, doesn't he? Wingers coming off their wing to pick up touches. He's obviously not been there, but they've had Johnny Sexton in the camp, and I don't think enough has changed for him not to still be able to influence that and tidy up maybe some of the kinks. But that was the area. I think you touched on it there, Charles, that they looked most rusty over the autumn, and I thought especially, well, obviously in that New Zealand game, which was pretty scrappy generally, and New Zealand sort of just outlasted them. But then also in the Argentina game, I thought Argentina defended in that game really well and was sort of able to just identify what Ireland were doing with those sweeping sort of multi-layered shapes, and actually just sort of let it play out in front of them and make the stops and stunt momentum, and they did that really well. So yeah, it's maybe a case that the super aggressive blitz that England have tried to sort of implement and now might sort of temper a bit. Maybe that tempering might be the way forward this weekend. We haven't had a caretaker coach for a little while because obviously in 2021 that wasn't a thing, and in Wales in 2013 without Warren Gatland were fine because won the title, which was quite nice. But then 2017 they were 5th and they only picked up 2 wins. So it's sort of I feel like we don't really know. Didn't Wales have to have an interim one when Warren Gatland fell off a ladder? I made that up.
that is a story that I have forgotten about. I would never accuse you of making up that. It's coming back to me a little bit. Next, and let's get into the other games this weekend.
Go.compare sponsors the Telegraph Rugby podcast. Go.compare is a proud sponsor of the WRU, offering support across all levels of rugby. We are big believers in the importance of grassroots rugby, and that's why we partnered with Telegraph Media Group to launch the Making a Difference campaign. From volunteers to groundsmen, referees to coaches, we wanted to celebrate the people who are really making a difference and reward them with £5,000 for their club to improve the grassroots game. Go to telegraph.co.uk/making a difference to find out more about the grassroots heroes who won our prize pot this year. Go.compare. Feel the deal.
Just like rugby, running a business takes grit, hard work, and a great team behind you. That's where Funding Circle comes in. As sponsors of Premiership Rugby, they're backing businesses like yours with access to fast, hassle-free finance to help you thrive. From coffee shops to kit manufacturers, they backed over 100,000 businesses with more than £13 billion since 2010. To find out how Funding Circle can help get your business goals over the line, visit fundingcircle.com/rugby.
Charles, Friday night to kick off the tournament. You're going to be in Paris. Where else would you be? You excited?
Very excited. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. We had to say what the thing we were most excited for, and I think it is Ireland v France in Dublin later on in the tournament. A rerun of that amazing game in 2023 in Dublin, but I think second on my list will probably be this one because it's to kick off the tournament. I think we all will agree it should be a comfortable French victory. It's at 9:15 p.m. local time kickoff. So everyone will be in very good voice and good humour.
Let's be honest, do you like that as a kick-off time?
Not as a journalist, but I'm sure that
what does it mean for
cares
deadlines?
about that
Because we all joke about how, oh God, it's awful for deadlines. What will it mean? Maybe second edition and you get to chill.
Maybe. I hope that the editors are listening.
They will be, and I'll say, yeah. I can get it in.
I can almost see the desk from here. That was a plea. Please be nice to Charles.
Yeah.
No Damien Penaud. I'm all right in saying.
No Damien
Penaud. Which might limit the damage.
Might limit the damage. No.
Oh no.
Yeah, that's dreadful.
Oh.
He will hopefully be back full of crunch at Twickenham, but I don't think that's a certainty. But I think that's the way that the wind is blowing, certainly. So it looks like Theo Sogbe, the Po wing, will come in instead of Kevin Villiers on the wing, and they'll have Louis Belbire has got over his bout of vertigo, which kept him out of Bordeaux's last game, and Thomas Ramos will go back to fullback after playing fly half during the autumn in the absence of Romain Untermack.
Jalibert on the bench or misses out?
Who, sorry?
Jalibert.
Jalibert. Oh, well, good. It depends if they want to go. If they go 6-2, then he probably will miss out because they've got Ramos who can play 10. But obviously, he left the squad in the autumn in a bit of a huff, but has now been called back.
And then
in.
took it out on everyone playing for Bordeaux.
yeah. Literally took it out on every single club side that he's faced since. But has now been called back. So it looks like that bridge has been. Well, those kinks have been ironed out. I don't know. I don't know if he'll be on the bench or not. It looks like Le Garrec will be. Luku missing out.
Charlie, well, I asked Charles this question. Can you please just check how big a favourite France are on Friday night?
I heard 28 points this morning.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is pretty mad in a
20
in a tournament that's traditionally kind of fairly tight games. That's brutal.
That is absolutely brutal. Charles, the question I was going to ask you was, is there not pressure on Fabien Galtier, but is there a sort of a growing sense of expectation that to have won that slam in 22, but not a lot more? Do they kind of need a title? Need something to hang on here?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the talent at their disposal, I think you could probably argue, and the way that the sort of adventurous, entertaining way that they approach the game, I think that's all well and good, yes, but they do need to start, I'd say, just dotting the I's and crossing the T's and getting more trophies, because they crashed out of the home World Cup at the quarterfinal stage, again having been favourites or at least joint favourites. They've won one Grand Slam, and then they've not won anything since. And you look at their starting 15 when everyone's fit. I know they've got some injuries at the minute, and basically you could make a case for almost every single one of them in a World 15. And a lot of the guys on the bench you could make a case for in a World 15 as well. Yes, so on that basis, they have underperformed. Yeah, they massively have, and I think that will be weighing on their minds. I mean, I don't think there's as much pressure on Friday night. Well, it's a strange one, really, because there might be more pressure than ever on them on Friday night, because that is the game that just they absolutely cannot lose. But I don't think they'll approach it like that. I don't think you can approach it like that. I think you just have to approach it as we're favourites for this game, and we will go in and we will probably win it, but I don't think you can I don't think you can start thinking about the worst case scenario, which is a Welsh upset like it was in 2018, the start of 2019 Six Nations, where France led sort of 16 or 19-0 at half time, and then a Wales comeback did them, with that Vaha Mahina pass and Huget having a mare in the backfield. Not for the first time, but yeah, this is a different. This is a different France team now, so I don't think there will be a shock on Friday night, and I don't think anyone's expecting one. But I think they will have aspirations of tournament championship success. And I'm also at their last game against Scotland as well on Super Saturday, so I for one hope that they're in with a shout, because there's a lot more excitement in Paris on the second Saturday of March.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a different Wales side to 2019 when they last won a slam. This could be defeat number 13 in a row. I spoke with Jonathan Davies, the BBC pundit and former Wales fly half, recently, and he said that one win for Wales in this tournament would be a success, which is quite a sad indictment of where we are, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because I think if they go to Rome,
well, where's it coming?
Yeah, if they went to Rome and won, given that they've lost at home to Italy the last two occasions,
and convincingly,
that would be an achievement. To be honest, England only beat them by 1 or 2 points last year. Mm-hmm. That's become a very tough place to go with a very tough Italy team, really. And is there a suggestion that their best chance of a win is England at home? Just because we know that they always raise their game by 5% against England, as most nations do.
Super Saturday, isn't it? England and Wales, which could be real schools out stuff with two sides with nothing to play for. That's why Ireland always pump Italy on the last day. It always feels like that feels like that. They always get that that game to run up a lot of points. But if depending on how the whole tournament goes for everybody, I think that Wales will have sort of one eye on that on hosting England, because England could be seriously vulnerable at that stage. And I mean, anything could happen at this stage, but I don't know. I saw Elasine. I'm sure everybody listening, or most people listening, will have heard this sort of clipped up Adam Jones presser, and everybody in that seemed to sort of come out of it with a sort of spring in their step. He sort of entertained everybody, but also sort of reminded everybody of the players that they've got. Just a tiny thing that stuck in my mind was he was talking about Jack Morgan and James Botham as two flankers who love to scrum, but I just thought of how those two went against South Africa, absolutely emptied themselves, and they'll have fight in them, Wales, clearly. But yeah, they've made some sort of no Max Llewellyn, no Gareth Anscombe just puzzles me, because that was
puzzling.
That was quite a easy way to tap into some good stuff that's happening in Gloucester and some sort of developing cohesion that they've sort of overlooked, which, yeah, as I say, find it a bit strange.
And Anscombe on the age point at a push is fine. At a push, and even then, that's being generous. But then Llewellyn, no.
Yeah, that one's harder to argue, isn't it?
But the age card when you're also recalling Faletau and
quite.
Yeah.
While we're chatting about Jiffy, he suggested it might be his final Six Nations, given that the rights for BBC and ITV are up in the air. Charles, you've written about TNT's kind of interest in this, and obviously we know they took over in the autumn doing those tests, and I think the consensus was that they did a good job, which wasn't a massive surprise given their background in the Premiership in Europe previously. But the possibility of it not being on the BBC and ITV anymore, losing the Six Nations from free to air, what are your thoughts on that, both of you? I personally think it would be disastrous, especially for the game in Wales at the moment, which is already on its knees. Then take it away from that kind of open shot window feels catastrophic, really.
To play devil's advocate a little bit, having a destination site for rugby where the Six Nations is on the same place, in this part of the world where the Six Nations is on the same place as the Premiership, gives you the chance to link the two together, which rugby does terribly. So there's that. However, I just think that the Six Nations does a lot of things really, really well, and its relevance in the wider context is so tied, I think, to terrestrial TV and the fact that it's in that open shot window. And I just think it would be really, really dangerous to understate the importance of that.
Because it is because of that where during the Six Nations, during this time of year, non-rugby fans suddenly become rugby fans. And that's not even casual rugby fans. That's people who really don't have much of an interest in rugby whatsoever for the other 10 months of the year will say, oh, I love the Six Nations, and I'll sit down and watch it because it's on free-to-air TV. We know that TNT are interested. They have done a very good job with the Premiership, and they did a very good job in the autumn. And as you just said, Charlie, the way that is sort of synchronised now between Test rugby and Premiership rugby is a boost for the sport. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I don't think we'll ever get to a scenario where TNT or any other subscription broadcaster have exclusive rights for the Six Nations. I think there will always be a free-to-air presence. But there is still so much up in the air. But the likelihood is that, I don't know. Well, I don't know if this is the likelihood, or certainly I could envisage a scenario whereby TNT will have some games. Maybe they take the BBC's chunk of games, maybe with England in the next rights, and it's split like that. And ITV might have, I don't know, for the sake of argument, Wales and Ireland home games, and TNT take England, France, Scotland and Italy home games, something along those lines. That's not based on sort of intel necessarily, but just from what we've heard, what TNT have said, it does seem as if TNT are very interested in Six Nations broadcasting rights, but I think they also appreciate that it's going to be very, very challenging to disrupt a sort of free-to-air monopoly, if you like, that the Six Nations think is very valuable to them. The Six Nations have said, we know that in the corridors of power at the Six Nations, it's not just about money. It's not just about the highest bidder. It's about the reach and the importance to the game. However, TNT are likely to come in with an offer that is far better than the BBC and ITV. So what they may do here as a balance and as almost a trade-off is take the TNT cash, a little bit less than maybe what TNT would offer for the full rights, or TNT or any subscription broadcaster for that matter. I'm just using TNT as an example. Take that cash and say, okay, well, we've got extra funds now, which is helpful to us, given that, as we know, rugby finances are not in the healthiest state. So they could take that, but while also keeping a free-to-air presence, maybe even if it's not the England games, of greater reach, England home games of greater reach on the likes of ITV or maybe the BBC. But as we wrote today in the Telegraph, our intel is that BBC insiders are sort of resigned to the fact that they are likely to lose the Six Nations rights, and although nothing is decided yet, should stress, and they've not even gone out to, the rights have not even gone out to tender yet, and they won't until after this year's championship. I think there is pessimism in Broadcasting House around whether the BBC will retain these rights.
Yeah, goodness me. Well, listen, we'll have to see how it pans out. I think it's going to be really fascinating to see how much, like you say, how much the money comes into it at the end of the day, and whether those are split up as well. The other game, Scotland against Italy up at Murrayfield, gets us going on Saturday. We were quite high on Scotland's expectations for this tournament, weren't we, Charlie? And these kind of key injuries keep denting our confidence, don't they?
Yeah. Brutal.
It's a blow for the whole tournament, losing Sione Tuipulotu, actually, because he's been so wonderful to watch last year. Do we think without him and Scott Cummings, I think there's another one, does that kind of take a lot of the steam out of their charge?
I think it does a bit. A few more injuries in their pack around the back five, forwards as well, which are going to be tricky. And that's a tough one first up, isn't it? They're going to have to settle in a new centre combination, or with Menoncello and Brex there. Italy are going to give them a workout, and Italy obviously won that game last year, so they're going to be buoyant and confident for that one.
Probably the best centre combination of the championship, would we say?
Without Tuipulotu.
Without Tuipulotu.
Yeah.
Brex and Menoncello.
Brex and Menoncello. Yeah, I was going to say, give me more Italy. I want more great Brex and Menoncello tandem working together as we saw last year. That was the real highlight of their campaign when they got those 2 wins and that draw, and they were fantastic to watch. And I wouldn't forget that Scotland will want a little bit of revenge here after last year and what happened in Rome as well. I think that was they did so many good things last year, Scotland, and this feels like the story of most of their Six Nations. Actually, they will do a lot of good, and then they would occasionally just have an enormous blip. And in Rome last year, they were so frustrated with their own mistakes and execution, especially coming after that controversial finish to the France game a couple of weeks beforehand,
and nearly blowing it against Wales,
and nearly blowing it against Wales as well. That I think,
jeez,
when you put it like that, I think actually Scotland kind of need to start this with a bit of a bang. Finn Russell looks in great touch for Bath over the last few weeks, and I appreciate that the pack that he has there.
Can I throw out a Lions bolter?
Oh, go on, yeah.
Ben White. I just think he's so crucial to I think he's just such a great foil for Finn Russell, in that he's just no frills, bang, balls in Finn Russell's hands, whatever he wants, but he's also tenacious organizer. I think he's a fantastic player. There are some good scrum halves, and Thomas Williams is likely to be one of the kind of star names for Wales. Alex Mitchell enhances how
it's a very open
England play
selection.
And then Jamison Gibson Park is sort of seen to be the number one, but I think Ben White's an excellent player.
Does he count as a bolter? Scotland's starting scrum half?
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe that's a terrible shout.
That reminds me of a discussion with our editors about picking a Lions bolter recently, where they very gently were like, are they too much of a regular to be a bolter?
Rory Dodge.
I had to put my hands up and go, all right, maybe he wasn't.
A Lions contender.
If Darge isn't allowed to be a bolter, then
Ben White isn't. Okay, I should just say, can I take a chance to big him up?
No. He was particularly excellent in maybe it was the 23 Six Nations or last year. I can't remember which one, but I will allow you that.
He's ace.
And I'm just thinking about Italy, what we want to see more of. We want to see more of Ross Vincent. We want to see
Danilo Fischetti.
A bit of a shame that Louis Lyon is going to miss the tournament, but Matt Gallagher seems to have settled in quite well over there after leaving Bath. He's a really good player. I think just after they arguably regressed a touch in the autumn, just would like to see another really consistent Italy tournament where they pick up two wins, let's say, and Wales would seem like one of them.
Back five of the scrum, they look great as well. The Canoni brothers, Vincent, as you've mentioned, Zuliani's a player. Yeah, I think so. And obviously Negri, they're strong. They will be strong, and it'd be great to see them get 2 wins. I mean, they deserved. 3 wins. They deserved to get 3 wins last year. Obviously, they got 2, and then with the draw, a draw which they should have won really. Away at France. It would be great to see them get 3 wins. I'm not sure if they will. I'm trying to think off the top of my head now about their fixtures, and they probably go away. Well, they've got Wales at home, but then away to Scotland, away to England, home to France, but I can't see them turning France over in Rome, but who knows?
Last time Italy won at Murrayfield, before we move on to the questions, was...
It wasn't when Hamish Watson got yellowed, was it? Or was it?
It was a while ago. Longer ago than I expected. 2015.
I was going to say
2015. Right, let's have some of your questions. Thank you for replying and sending so many to Charlie's request the other night. Let's answer a few of them now. Okay, questions. Tom, we're going to start with your question. Will Borthwick face the sack if we finish 4th or lower?
Depends on the manner of the performances. Can often depend on how well they're playing coming out of a tournament. Because you remember England sort of... Under Eddie Jones, England have had sort of campaigns that have looked promising and stuttered in the middle and then finished strong and everybody's buoyant. And I just think with this sort of decision, the public mood has taken so much into account. So as I say, that could be a tense, horrible one in Cardiff, couldn't it?
The issue is, though, that Italy and Wales are their last 2 games.
Yeah. So they should finish. They should want to finish.
I
with
don't
2
know.
wins.
That Cardiff game's had me twitchy since the autumn.
I think it depends what's riding on it. I think if England were going there with a chance of winning the whole thing, I think that they will blow Wales away. I think if England are going there to sort of save face a bit and to restore a bit of pride, then I think there's a chance that stranger things have happened than Wales stinging England on the last weekend of the Six Nations. When has that ever happened?
What's more likely, England finish 4th or England meet this RFU target of 4 wins out of 5?
Oh, the latter. No, sorry, the former.
England's finished 4th.
I was going to say.
For me, the Calcutta Cup one's huge.
The 4 wins out of 5 target
snap
feels
that.
just ridiculous. I can't believe they've set that. But no, they won't sack him, I don't think, if they finish
lower than 4th.
I think lower than 4th, and I think he would be in trouble. But
Do you
I don't
think
think
they
they
would
will
sack him though?
Although I think he'd be in trouble.
One thing
5th
I would
or
just
6th, but I don't think they will finish.
Can we just throw that
5th or 6th.
kind of odd Bill Sweeney comment about Borthwick from the other day in here?
Yeah, very
just
bizarre.
into the mix. Which one of you?
Strange, another kind of
written
contradiction. I was there. There's another contradiction, sort of, as part of that meeting with Sweeney, whereby I'd asked him earlier, sort of, is it archaic that the head coach still reports into you? And he said, well, no, because if there's a problem with the head coach, it should fall on the CEO, and that's the case for a lot of countries. And then somebody said, so is your fortune tied to Steve Borthwick in the Six Nations? He went, well, not necessarily, because I didn't appoint him. So it seemed a little bit of a contradiction in terms, and
I can understand it, giving him sort of his due a little bit. Like, he's not a rugby expert, so therefore I can understand when he says that the appointment wasn't his sole say so. I can understand that, and I sympathise with him on that front. But the buck still does stop with him. Like, he's in charge of the organisation, and he's appointed. Well, he had to let Eddie go, or was that not his call either? And then hire Steve Borthwick, which he's now distanced himself from. Yeah, it's not really the tone that you want to hear from the RFU CEO ahead of a key Six Nations, with the England men's team having lost more games than it won in 2024. It's not really, and especially with the pressure that he's under, I don't think it was necessarily the right tone.
at least they've got a realistic wins target to hit, so that's good. Question from Stephen: if Henry Pollock was French, he'd be starting for France on Friday night, not pissing about for their under-20s.
Love this
dramatic
question.
pause. Sorry, there. Didn't even mean to.
Wasn't
do
sure
that.
whether you're allowed
I wasn't
to
sure.
say
I
it.
was allowed to say.
Are we past the watershed?
I was looking behind the glass for guidance, and I've got nothing.
And you got told, "Go on."
They haven't said a word.
Go on, say it.
Is that true, Charles?
I think it's such a nice question.
It's a very good question. I'm going to answer it sort of somewhat diplomatically, and I'm going to say that I would have him in the squad for Dublin
Instead of who?
On a 60 bench. So
Instead of who? Who would he be in there for?
Probably Chandler Cunningham South.
Really? Okay.
I think I would have had him in the squad for Dublin. I think he is ace. I don't know whether he'd be starting for France or not, because obviously they've got their own back row riches, although they are missing a couple. But they're going to pick Jegu, who's young talent, who obviously had off-field issues in the summer. Who's 21, but he's already been involved with the squad as well, whereas Pollock's still uncapped, so it's
at the risk of spending too long on this question, but I really love it. It's sort of more of a system thing, isn't it? And we're used to the French guys coming through and playing in the 20s when they've already played a lot, either in the top 14 or the Pro D2. And the thing with Pollock is I would say yes, and I think that's a good point. I would have had him very close to the bench just because of the strength of his performances this year, going away in Pretoria, being phenomenal. He has just not looked cowed at all. The one thing is of how young he is. This is his very first year of senior rugby. Last year he basically burst onto the scene with the strength of under 20 performances alone. And Phil Dowson was fascinating on this at the beginning of the season, because he said, look, I'm not comfortable bigging him up. I wasn't comfortable bigging him up in pre-season because he hadn't done anything. He played one Premiership game, came off the bench at Welford Road. Now he's built up this amazing momentum, but he still has only played sort of 15, 20 senior games. People his age in France, I looked at Gazzotti, so he'd obviously had a full season, I think, with Grenoble in the second tier, and then he's had 2 more seasons with Bordeaux. So that's probably why there's more chance of these French guys pushing through. Having said that, I know Stephen has previously sort of tweeted about Pollock's swagger to go with his skills and athleticism and everything else. And I do think that it just has lent itself to, seems like he's somebody who will just keep meeting the levels that are thrown at him. And he must be very, very close.
It's a bit of a cliche, but if you're old enough, if you're good enough, you're old enough, or whatever it is.
And to their credit,
whichever way.
Yeah, and I think there was also one game for Saints. I forget who it was against, where he came off the bench and he looked awesome. Was it Munster, where he looked really, really strong off the bench? Yeah, was it the Munster game where he won the winning turnover, didn't he? Yeah, he looked really good off the bench, and I just thought, if you're looking that good off the bench at Champions Cup, I know Test is a step up, but therefore you're not going to look out of place at Test level.
Yeah. Also, Charlie, don't correct yourself. If you want to say Prodida, you say.
Well, I said
no, you said Prodita.
You go.
I definitely mangled
just
it.
embrace
there
it.
was a mangling. I think you said Prodita.
Prodita.
Oh, okay. Well,
I said Pro D2 in a French accent.
Let's not ruin the French education of millions of people listening to this podcast. Right. Last question from Elliot, and then we're out of here. Plenty of talk about pre-match routines of the players. What are the pre-game routines for the panel?
This is why Elliot gets on every week, because these are the questions.
Because you love him.
You might have heard it in my voice, but I've got the flu, so my pre-game routine in Paris will probably be Lemsip.
Well, should we talk about our Lyon? Oh, that was fantastic. I mean, we couldn't do that every game because it was quite sort of decadent. But yeah, we went
the
to
indoor food market.
Indoor market,
yeah, lovely.
Had some
oysters.
We had oysters, yeah, didn't we?
But we should stress they are much cheaper in France than they are in England.
And we should stress that is not every game.
Yeah,
but it should be.
As a boring,
it was a late kickoff, wasn't it?
Was it? Yeah, it was an 8 p.m. kickoff. Yeah. You've done all your work on a Saturday. Most of your work anyway. So yeah, you're sort of free. There's talk of paddle in Dublin in the morning. But at the game, the only one I have is to absolutely fill my boots on the food that is on offer, and then try and watch the warm up. So try and watch as much of the warm ups.
You do like
it coming out. Yeah.
You like a warm up scout, Charles. If I don't see you pound an espresso or two before kickoff, I normally get a bit concerned.
Oh yeah, I'll pile into the coffees.
Yeah,
100%. Especially during the World Cup with those tiny little paper espresso cups.
Well, because in France, I mean, again, French clubs have put on a very, very good spread, but the Stade de France, the media sort of food and drink is rubbish, and it's not that I care. It's very privileged to be doing this job, and but it is still rubbish. And so all you get is a coffee, really. So that's why you pile into it, because it's that or nothing.
Tell them that on Friday.
And also, it's an 8:15 p.m. kickoff, so I'll need it to stay awake.
That's true. Yeah. The only one...
9:15 local time.
9:15. The only one that came to my mind was really nerdy, in that if I don't have my teams and my scoring sequence all written out before kickoff, then I do panic slightly, because trying to fill in replacements, listeners, can be a bit of a pain.
When you have to do that.
When you don't always have to do that.
But on Premiership games. Yeah. Got to do your prep.
So yeah, very important. Right, that's it for today. We're back. Thanks, Charlie.
That was fun, Colsey.
Thanks, Charles. Nice to be back in the studio, back together. So quick reminder of where everyone is. Charles, you are going to be in...
France, Wales. In Paris.
You're going to be in France,
I'm going to be I'll be in Paris on Friday for France v Wales.
Great. I'll be at Murrayfield for Scotland, Italy. And Charlie, you will be...
Dublin.
Fantastic. Very good. We should have picked some winners. Should we do that quickly? So quickly around the table. France, Wales. France. Scotland, Italy.
Scotland.
Through gritted teeth, I think I'll say. Not gritted teeth, but through concerned teeth, I will say Scotland. Gritted teeth makes it sound like I don't want them to win, whereas of course don't really care, because
concerned teeth
is that I think they will win, but I'm not convinced.
Through concerned teeth is a new phrase. It's quite a new album that I've forgotten about. And Ireland, England to wrap up. I'm going to say Ireland.
So am I.
Go on
then. I'll say England just to mix it up a bit.
Fantastic. Thanks to Charlie and Charles. Thanks to Steve Borthwick and the RFU as well for giving us so much time with him the other week. That was much appreciated. We will be back on Monday, so back to our regular times every Monday throughout the Six Nations. Keep an eye out for all of our content building up to this weekend and all the reaction after the games as well. There's going to be loads on the Telegraph website. Enjoy the games. We certainly will. And we'll speak to you next week. Until then, goodbye.
Go.compare sponsors the Telegraph Rugby podcast. Every rugby player knows they need the support of their team to get the best results, and it's the same with insurance. When you are looking for great deals on your insurance, you can find the perfect support in Go.Compare, helping compare the right deals for you. Feel the deal with Go.Compare.